Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second edition of Scandinavian Rail Optimisation Virtual Workshop. My name is Ben Holliday, and I'm the Managing Director of Rotea Media, the organisers of today's event. I'd like to start off by thanking each and every one of you for registering to attend today. The interest in today's workshop has been very overwhelming, so thank you for sparing the time to take part. A very special thanks goes to this year's speakers and also our moderator. Quite simply, without all of your support, today wouldn't have been possible, so thank you once again. With regards to your planning for 2021, my company will be organising 3 events for next year. The first is our flagship event, which is the Rise of IoT and Big Data in Rail, which will take place at the end of May. The second event is the physical event of this workshop, Scandinavian Rail Optimisation, which will take place at the end of June. And then finally, we'll be organising Alpine Rail Optimisation, which will take place at the beginning of October. In your handout section that you can see on your screen, there are 3 PDF documents, which are the programs for each of these events. So please feel free to view them, and should you be interested in attending any of those events, please feel free to contact me directly. All it leaves me to say is thank you once again. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I'd now like to pass you over to our moderator for the day, Daniel McGregor, the co-founder from the company Nexia. Many thanks.
So hello, a very warm welcome to all for our latest instalment from Rotea Media's The Rise of IoT and Big Data in Rail. We're very happy that you can join us from wherever you join us from in the world, and a big thank you as ever to Ben and the organising team. There's quite some work that goes on behind such an event, and I hope that we will be rewarded with a fantastic and interesting discussion. A big thank you also to our panel for taking part and for taking the time to prepare and for sharing their thoughts with us. A quick introduction from me. As many of you will know, I'm Daniel McGregor, the co-founder of Nexia. We're the leading enabler of digital supply chain. We equip our customers' rail freight wagons with an IoT gateway and sensors and extract the data to the Nexia intelligent cloud platform to provide our clients with a range of digital services around location, mileage, critical events, remote sensing, and automation of processes built around the digital twin. So I hope we'll be able to inspire some interesting discussion in the questions and so on with this sort of background and knowledge. When we founded Nexia back in 2015, many rail customers said the solutions available were not fitting to the customers' needs. But now that all has changed. So we see a wide range of hardware solutions available, from sensors to gateways to APIs, and the trickle of data turns into a stream of data and now a flood of data. Today we'll focus on the theme of digitization in Scandinavia, with a particular focus on the asset side. So we're thinking about rolling stock, passenger cars, freight wagons, parts and equipment, and the processes and the way that we manage and interact with our customers and also internally within our business. Hopefully we'll be able to learn from each other in this session, because we all have different business and a different perspective. Scandinavia's strategy of using real-time monitoring and big data specifically to predict failures early and to increase availability of assets and services at the same time as making everything more reliable and obviously even safer. So last time we looked at the Scandinavian rail infrastructure side. Today it's on the asset side, and I said last time that we want to be careful not to put all of Scandinavia into one basket of huggy and beautiful wooden furniture. I make the same quip again, because obviously there are huge differences across the region as well, and we'll hopefully be able to focus on some of those things. So when we talk about the information revolution in rail, and we can look at how it affects our approach to the challenges that are unique to our region, and we'll try to do that today. How we can manage the challenges presented by our unique landscapes, by our weather, by our customer industries, by our culture, and also the limitations of our infrastructure and the practical expectations of the people that we work to support and the people we work with. Maybe we can see some strengths that are unique, or perhaps some legacy that help to speed up adoption. I'm sure that cultural qualities like being cooperative, egalitarian, and practical are all helpful when driving change. I know dealing with the culture around data and innovation is a challenge for everyone to a degree. I'd like to start by welcoming our first speaker, and we'll hopefully learn something about maximizing the data warehouse and monetizing it. We'll touch on behavior and the safety aspects, and hopefully also on the radical approaches to the system in terms of improving arrivals and removing KPIs that don't support our objectives. So I'd like to offer a very warm welcome to the Head of Information Technology from DB Cargo Scandinavia, Mr. Karit Benicke. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I think my camera is on right now. Thank you so much. Now, let's start with Schrödinger's cat. Now, I know that's a weird way to start a railway conference, but nevertheless, let's start with Schrödinger's cat. For those of you who don't know Schrödinger, he's an Austrian physicist, probably mostly known for his argument against quantum state mechanics, of which he's depicting a cat in a box, and that cat in a box is probably more famous than Schrödinger himself. The point being, in quantum mechanics, that until you measure what is happening, you don't know what is happening inside the box. So Schrödinger's cat box experiment, he said that as long as you have a cat in a box, you don't know whether it's alive or dead until you open the box. Now, that is pretty close to workplace culture. You will find a lot of quotations saying workplace culture is what happens when nobody is looking. When the CEO is turned away, the way that people are behaving, that's your company culture. Now, about 2 years ago, in our company, we decided to start out a cultural change program to improve our safety in the company. After running the program for a year, we figured out that it seemed like even though people were participating in the discussions and the workshops to improve safety, it seemed like whenever our change agents were turning out of the room and leaving people alone, that they were doing something else. It's quite frustrating. You know, sometimes change happen out of luck, and sometimes they happen because you're good prepared. In this case, I had one guy coming up to me and with a problem. One of the drivers was complaining that every time IT gave him a new tablet, he would have to go and check off all the safety relevance documents that he already read, just because he was receiving a new tablet. And he was asking me, why couldn't you find a solution to that? So I gave that problem to one of my employees, and he came up with a solution. He said, we will build a small database on the tablet, and then we will replicate the database to our central storage. So whenever the driver gets a new tablet, he can then just recreate the state of this last tablet on the new one. Now, from there, there was a long walk to take that data from everybody's tablet of which papers they had actually been reading and putting that on the central data warehouse. Now, what we saw doing that kind of confirmed our concerns. So basically, it turned out that people were maybe doing something else when the change manager had left the room. So I'm going to give you an example here. This is live data from our database, and this is showing by person who has read what, and specifically also what people did not read. This is an example, so you will see a lot of people here that did not read what they're supposed to, but also you will see a slider, so pretty much in the middle of the page, which indicates that we have a lot of rows here, and the major part of our company is actually reading what they're supposed to. And the guys we have up here in red and yellow probably are out sick or have been moved to different positions, and thus they don't need to read this stuff. Nevertheless, having all of this in the database, we were able to come up with some KPIs. We're able to measure, and we're able to bring this up in our performance management meetings. So at the end of the day, right now the current state is that this is a topic that is being discussed at the highest management level. It's discussed with our heads off, it's discussed with our team leads, and even team leads with the individual have a chance to discuss, why didn't you read this paper? What did you think of it? Was it hard to understand? And basically it has led to a culture where we are talking about safety more than just in workshops. So this is now everyday life. I'm not going to claim now that IT saved or increased our safety awareness, but IT definitely helped a lot in this. As you will see also in this graph, we are seeing that in total, these numbers are from August, 95.4% of everything that was published to specific groups was read. But we know that people are discussing this. We know that this is on the topic in every day, on the hallways, in the sidings. And also we are seeing now a decline in the number of safety incidents we've had in 2020. So how would you feel being able to go back in time? Now, that's maybe a rhetorical question, but and it does not belong in a rail conference, but nevertheless, probably this belongs in a rail conference. So most of you should be familiar with this. This is how we run our trains. The green line shows a train that is planned to run from position 5 to position 1 in a path, and the red line shows a train that is delayed. Now we have a concept that trains that are on time stays on time, and trains that are late have to give way for trains that are on time. But to be able to predict when you arrive, this is when you order a new path, and this is what you see in the red line. Now, what happens if you don't order a new path? Now, you will be late, very late, if you don't do it. But occasionally, you will be able to catch up your delay. And this is what I think is interesting. Now, if we look at industries like the trucking business, even if you have a slight delay, you will be able to look up on Google Maps, and Google will tell you exactly when you will arrive. Now, we don't have Google in our industry, but we do have data warehousing. So in order to use this data for something purposeful, if we start collecting data on every time we are delayed, but we don't order a new path, we should be able, with our data warehouse, to find out exactly what are the metrics that will predict whether a train will be able to catch up or whether it will be able to or end up late at the destination. Now, with all the data warehousing you have and all the data you collect from your production, this should be a piece of cake. The only thing is the catch, your investment, is you need to be sure if you want to do this, because it takes an investment. For a period of time, you have to collect data without asking for a new path, but simply staying in the same path. Now the question is, if you're ready to do that, and if you do it, maybe you will be able to go back in time and arrive, even after a delay, being able to catch up what you've lost. Now, KPIs and working with KPIs and performance management has its ups and downs. So KPIs in one way allow us to discuss and improve KPIs, so allow us to discuss what went wrong, why did we not meet the targets. But the downside of KPIs is that they may be counterproductive. So sometimes working in a lean culture, you should be enforcing the question, are we doing things right? But sometimes our work with KPIs has become a habit, so that we simply calculate the KPIs and just accept them for what they are. Now, working in DB, we have tons of KPIs. We have a zillion. And I can tell you some of these KPIs are maybe a source of frustration for some workers, because we can't find the data that is actually being asked for. So consequently, we're using data that is close to, or maybe just data that was the only data around. We put it in there. Well, so KPIs can tell you if you're doing it right. But if you calculate it using the wrong metrics, you don't get the answer that you're looking for. You might think you're doing it right while you're heading in the wrong way. Now, this illustration shows a driver productivity, a KPI called driver productivity. So that's one of the official KPIs that we're using. And I have 3 examples of how we're using it. So the driver productivity tells you how much time, how much a percentage of a shift is being used for forwarding a train. So let's say, for the purpose of the first rectangle we have there that says 50%, we have a shift that is 6 hours in length, and 3 of those hours are used for forwarding the train, while the remaining is used for breaks and preparations and stuff. This will give us a driver productivity of 50%. Now let's say we have a 3-hour delay. So the driver is still using 3 hours for preparation and reading, but he's using an additional 3 hours for forwarding the train. Now that calculates up to a 66% driver productivity. Now, I don't know if any of our clients promoting that a KPI that should be higher when a train is delayed. That sounds counterintuitive, but it gets even worse. Now, on the last one, we have a KPI that shows if we put into the shift, the 6-hour shift, a 3-hour buffer to consider the overrun in case of a delay, we get a driver productivity that is even lower. Now, if you are a manager and you are not into the details of this, how would you find out that a KPI is counterproductive? If you have no access to industry benchmarks, well, I think you have to be lucky. In our case, I think the manager decided to investigate if we could lower our overtime. And we did so by looking into our business warehouse. So by relating our regularity deviations in our trains and the overtime registrations that followed with the driver utilization, we were able to see that it would make sense to replan and try to put in the buffer, even though it's counterintuitive with the KPIs that we've seen in the previous page. So even by reducing our KPIs, we simply stopped considering them. We still have to report them, but we stopped considering them. We have been able to now put in a buffer, and by putting in that buffer, significantly also reducing the overtime that we're earning. So the thing is, with our overtime hours right now, that they're kind of like the cat in the box of Schrödinger. They're here, but they're not really here. Daniel, I think I'm at the end of my presentation. I don't know how much time I spent. I think I was a bit faster than expected.
It's super. Thank you very much, Carrot. Really enjoyed it. And just to maybe summarize a little bit, I actually said to my colleague earlier that we're going to rock up the presentations today by talking about, well, we're going to make a quantum leap in the quality of the webinar, and you really kicked off properly there with the straight into Schrödinger's cat, and then into time travel, and then into KPIs, which I think is a fantastic topic at the moment. I mean, I've experienced a lot of KPIs in my past, and I can certainly relate to, you know, sort of the double-edged sword of KPIs can be very useful for getting a perspective on the performance, but also can be disincentivizing and can cause problems because you start to look at the numbers instead of the story behind them. And I think that, you know, as an opening presentation, it was very valuable indeed, because it's a reminder of the value of data, but also the dangers of falling for the trap of looking at data without understanding the context around it. And I think that's a perfect presentation to start, because it sets us up really nicely. I know that some of the other speakers will be talking about some of these challenges too. I also really liked this moment where you said, you know, about the workplace culture, that, you know, sort of you implement things and then when you turn your back, it goes back to normal. But I think that one of the things that you mentioned, especially around this driver case and, you know, the discoveries and the way that you've actually seen the impact on safety happen here, is that it's the engagement that's important. And when people have got real things to talk about and it's not just speculation anymore, then you create kind of, you know, a bit of a friction in the dialogue. And this is enables us to get to under the surface of things that we assumed you can't change, or things that we just, you know, sort of accepted as part of the industry until now. So fantastic presentation. Thanks so much, Carrie. I look forward to visiting or revisiting some of those things as we go forward into the discussion. We move forward, so we'll catch up with you later, Carrie. Can we move forward now with our second speaker? I'd like to introduce this speaker, who will take a look at the use of data for improved decision making, so follows on from Carrot's topics there. And we're going to consider this point of view from both the operator and the maintainer position, so it's quite interesting to get two different angles there. So the goals are always, or the goals in this case, are to improve availability and reliability, while at the same time reducing LCC, so we'll discover a bit more about that. Digitization of rolling stock, the maintenance, integrating something called LeadMind, I believe, with the CMMS, and then real-time and advanced analytics. I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let you hear it from the man himself. I'd like to welcome the Managing Director from CAF or CAF Rail Digital Services, and this is Mr. Javier de la Cruz. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Daniel. Hi, thanks for having CAF in this Scandinavian Rail Congress. Yeah, we want to share with you where we are in terms of products, services related with digital tools, and in order to improve the main KPIs of the railway industry. KPIs related with reliability, availability, life cycle cost. So briefly, we're going to cover, I'm going to briefly introduce CAP Group, then we will move to LeadMine, our CAP digital twin platform, 3 parts of the portfolio. Then we share with you several references in Scandinavia, for sure, and what we've been implementing as a consolidation of different technologies, processes, people, data, mindsets, which is the digital depot in the Zaragoza tram. So, as you may all know, CAP Group is an international company. The international company which has delivered trams, metro, commuter trains, high-speed trains, together with traction system, signaling system, infrastructure. So let's say a complete mobility portfolio. And recently we bought 2 different companies. One of them is Solaris, a bus company, which is an electric bus based on batteries and based on hydrogen technology. And then the second company is Euromaint, and that's why mainly we are here. We want to share with you where we are in terms of Scandinavian projects, references, and what we are doing with LeadMine in that region. So what is LeadMine? LeadMine is the digital train platform of CAP. As I was saying, there's 3 main different parts of the platform. One of them is the fleet management tool, which is conceived to answer several requirements, needs we were discussing with different clients. It's an up to millisecond web browser interface that the operator and maintainer is going to use and is using to improve their support to the driver, the way they manage the trains from mainline to the depot. They are going to access different functionalities to increase the return of investment. Then a second part of the platform, which is LeadMine Advanced Analytics. Then I didn't mention that, but there's a hardware. Everything starts with a hardware installed in the train, to the HMI and to the MBB bus, and 2 streamings of data. One of them is going to go to the fleet management tool, real-time functionalities, and the second one is going to be used for different use cases we're going to share. And then the third part of the platform, we are approaching the market and the solution and the services. If with LeadMine, the onboard solution, we are able to capture 70% of the life cycle cost, traction control, HVAC, batteries, battery chargers, air and generation treatment, and so on. With the wayside monitoring train equipment, we're going to be able to capture the remaining 30% of the life cycle cost. So geometry of wheels, bearings of wheels, we're going to measure brake discs, brake pads, pantographs, bogie, and so on. So everything that it is mainly less sensorized, so it's less intelligent, right? So focusing only on use cases of advanced analytics, we can share with you 12 of the use cases we are implementing, depending on the type of contract or the type of contract we are having, or the type of client and the requirements we are receiving. But at the end, it goes from managing alarms correctly, prioritize corrective activity in the depot, to exploration and diagnostic tool, which we use and our clients use to understand what was happening in a fleet, in a train, in a system. They're gonna be able to access any sensor data, any digital and variable and analog variable. So they're gonna understand what was happening. With fleet management, we're gonna understand what is happening, right? Real-time information monitoring. And with the rest of the use cases, we're gonna cover from geolocating events and understanding whether the root cause of an issue is related with infrastructure or it is related with the fleet. So some of them are going to be covered, but we're not going to cover the passenger counting. We did deliver that for Northern Arriba, Zaragoza Tram, Metro Madrid clients, in which we are, due to the COVID-19 situation, we are counting passengers so that we can then, as an example, provide a forecasting. We can send that information to the next step, to the next stop, so that passengers are going to have the right information to move to the coach less crowded, or we're going to send that information to an API that the client may have with their end clients, right, with the passengers. But we are controlling the software. The fleet is going to send the version of different softwares that are installed in the train, and we can compare that situation towards the expected one, towards the one that needs to have, right, the fleet. So again, different use cases. One of them is the drill down capability. So our clients are going to have the capability on, in order only having 4 to 5 clicks on a button. They're going to be able to assess reliability performance, what is the less performing train, the less performing coach, or the less performing system, so that with only 3 or 4 clicks of a button, understanding what is the priority. Let's prioritize things, let's do things quickly. So now with that functionality and LeadMind, they are avoiding to go chasing trains that load information and chasing diagnostic information or data. They're gonna be able to geolocate events, so that we are geolocating sliding behaviors, wheel slide protection behaviors. We're gonna geolocate signaling issues, doors issues, so that we're gonna assign the problem to the infrastructure or to the fleet in order to improve the overall performance. We are able to calculate the consumption of the energy being consumed by the traction system, HVAC system, and so the client is going to be able to access that data. Which train was servicing which part of the service, complete service, and so they're going to be able to know what was the energy consumed in a specific day, a specific train, in a specific system or service, sorry, so that they can share that information with the infrastructure manager. Sometimes we are confronted to substations not feeding trains correctly, or trains that are not behaving correctly due to some issues with the energy that they need to consume. So this is again part of the return of investment, understanding energy consumption. For sure, what we are delivering is health indicators and life indicators in different projects for different clients. So they understand, they're gonna have a clear picture of the performance per system based on alarms, based on their own health and life indicators, so that they only going to focus on the anomalies. Right, so less over maintaining activity and more proactive measures. So if something is going to be wrong, let's focus only on 1 out of 200 HVACs or 1 out of 1,000 doors, instead of providing the typical maintenance plan based on kilometers. Let's as soon as possible know where the anomalies are, so that we are only focused on very specific systems out of the fleet. And what about the references that we may change with you, share with you? So only in the Scandinavia we can share with you 2 examples. We are delivering Oslo trams together with the fleet management module of LeadMind, and we are delivering Lund tram with a maintenance contract with several modules of LeadMind. And together with Euromate, we are monitoring, or we're going to monitor different non-cat fleets that we are maintaining thanks to Euromaint or together with Euromaint, so that we're going to improve our operational efficiency on those different projects. And worldwide, we having a footprint of 32 different fleets in 12 countries that they are already capturing the benefits of real-time data for operators or for maintainers to change the normal maintenance plan regime towards another one. They are capturing benefits of automating things, of automating. We are opening working orders right directly from lead mine to the computer maintenance management system, and we are analyzing back in lead mine data, working orders, materials, reliability issues with an origin of the data in the computer maintenance management system. So this is the success stories. We 4 out of those 32 examples. Northern Arriva is using Leadman in their control room. They are having more than 150 different users connected to the real-time information or to where our trains are sleeping, or we are activating wheel-slide protection. So they are exchanging information with the infrastructure manager. They are supporting the drivers. They are counting passengers thanks to fleet management too. So they have started their digital transformation journey together with us. We can share with you what we've been doing in a trend during the latest 5 years, increasing the life expectancy of wheels through different mindset, different tools that has allowed us to increase significantly the wheel life expectancy. And then at the end of the presentation, we will share a video of the integration of different technologies, culture, processes, data in the Zaragoza tram, what we call a digital depot, and a smart depot, a paperless depot. And so the third part of Leadmine portfolio are the wayside monitoring train equipments. So we need to capture the 100% data or information that is going to be available or may be accessible, so that we can improve the availability and reliability. So we deploy, depending on the contract or depending on client needs, we may deploy a system to automatically measure wheels, or automatically measure brake disc or brake pads, or several aspects of bogie or pantograph. So this is our actual footprint that we are having different clients, different systems deployed worldwide. That data is going to be sent to Leadmine so that we're going to have all the data together, and we're going to avoid silos of information to appear. And so just to conclude, I want to share a small video that is going to, only in 2 minutes the duration, is going to clearly summarize what we have discussed. Real-time information, advanced analytics at the service of operators and maintainers.
Thanks so much, Javier. I guess that's the end of that presentation. There was a lot of information there. It was good to see the video to get a summary of that information, and I think that adds some context. Nice place to start, where we left off a little bit with the KPIs. Obviously, reliability, life cycle costs, really important issue, and fantastic to get this introduction as well into LeadMind, or this seems like it's grown hugely and covers very large number of functions now. Then obviously the reference in Scandinavia, and to see what's happening in terms of you know, the root cause analysis, I think is critical as well. Again, a bit reminded me of some of the things that Karit said about getting underneath the surface of the data and trying to understand what's really going on out there in the field, and to drill down and so on. I like the energy consumption topic too. Obviously, this is sustainability, touching on sustainability, very relevant. I think we'll pick up some of these things in the discussion later. But thanks very much, Javier, and you know, we'll speak to you soon. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get on with the presentations now from our next speaker, who will help us to understand something about increasing quality and reliability in intermodal train solutions, and how to move to a more proactive maintenance model, and define why information sharing and real cooperation is so critical. I hope that introduction's done justice to the things you're going to speak about now, Carl. I welcome to the webinar the commercial director of CargoNet, and it's Mr. Carl Frederick Carlson. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Daniel, and for the opportunity to share some of our experience in the area of future importance. For those of you not familiar with CargoNet, I would like to start off with a few words about us. CargoNet is a freight train operator based in Norway. We offer services mainly in Norway, but also offer services between Norway and Sweden. And 85% of our revenue come from intermodal shuttle trains, and we operate up to 4 daily round trips per line in our network. And our overall punctuality in 2019 was 95%, measured in delivery within 15 minutes. Train transport in general, and especially intermodal freight transport, is about delivery on time. And as on-time delivery gives both our customers and us as an operator the lowest transportation cost and the best quality of service. And this is also the reason why punctuality is one of CargoNet's most central KPIs. Of course, in a system like the railways, delays will occur, but regardless of the reason or responsibility for the delay, the delivery is affected. And the professional train customers and users of intermodal freight transport naturally understand that deviation and delays occur in the railway system. But at the same time, they have little understanding if they do not receive information about what is happening, or even worse, they do not receive information at all. So on our intermodal trains, we have, of course, many different customers, and these customers can in turn have between 1 and 100 customers in daily units. So there is a significant need to notify changes in the supply line. So it is a matter of creating predictability in the transport chain, which for railways and trains entails a significant need to share information about deviations. But producing this information to our customers is a demanding exercise, because we do not always see or have an overview of the solution and the alternatives at the same time the problem arises, and especially on unpredicted stops. And we as operators are depend on information from traffic managers, other train operators, subcontractors, and of course our organization. And in this chain, our task is to ensure predictable information to all stakeholders. But we have a significant lack of information, and so does other operators and terminal providers and even traffic managers. And So this is not just about technology, but on how to establish our work processes in order to ensure a higher reliability, and how we can lower deviation costs, both for our customers and ourselves, while at the same time ensuring the quality of delivery and produce alternative delivery solution when an incident occurs. And one of the keys to this going forward is probably to find new ways to work more integrated, both with infrastructure owners, traffic managers, competitors, and players influencing the delivery, and finding ways to share and structure information we do not share today. And for our own business, of course, we as an operator need to get ready and utilize the information that we will have tomorrow. And in this context, there is examples of exploratory work being done, and one of these is a feasibility study that is being carried out at Malmö freight station in Sweden. And the project has participants from train operators, from traffic management, and terminal suppliers. And the aim of this preliminary study is to develop a concept around digital interaction based on a collaborative decision-making concept. A concept which is familiar or more used in aviation, and there are also examples from different ports. And the idea with this concept is that you can solve situation iteratively in a better way when you understand how the deviation affects other operators' plans. And this means that all parties have better conditions for making good decisions, and they also have better opportunities to see the impact of incidents, which in turn provides opportunities for increased predictability for customers. And I think this is an interesting approach, and it describes an opportunity where we, as others in the industry, are interdependent to find methods and standards for sharing information, and at the same time be able to utilize the opportunities that lies and will come with digitalization in the area ourselves. So I think if intermodal freight transport by train is to increase its relevance and utilize its potential in the future and take on a greater role in the transport market, this is an area where we as an industry need to improve. I thought that I would spend the rest of my time telling you more about a more tangible area of our work where digitalization affects our quality and reliability. An area where digitalization is gradually affecting our work process, but also our achievements. And the story began during the winter and in the beginning of 2018. The 23rd Winter Olympics was arranged in Pyeongchang, the beginning of 9th of February this year, a big happening for us Norwegians. And it was a beautiful winter. The cold and snow lay all over the country, both in Pyeongchang as well as in Norway and Sweden. And it was excellent conditions for skiing. But there was a demanding period for us and several other freight train operators. Low punctuality, poor predictability, lack of capacity in the workshops, mostly due to a strong winter and unpredictable loss of wagons due to wheel failures, such as wheel flats and other types of out-of-roundness behavior. And it all directly weakened our ability to deliver on time. And as it was cold and snowy all over the geographical area where we operate, there were no option to change the production plan and drive wagons to milder areas to melt ice and snow. And it was a challenging time for us as an operator and our subcontractors and our employees, but it was most certainly not less challenging for our customers. And we had challenging giving our customers reliable information, both with day-to-day deliveries, but also to be predictable in our information for the following days after a deviation had occurred. And the cost of leaving wagons along the line, lifting the carriers off the wagons, was considerable, and our personnel spent significant hours correcting and handling these deviations. And the cost rose to heights we had never seen before, and the strain on our employees was high. And the problems were especially high on one of our lines, the Are line between Oslo and Narvik. That's a distance of about 2,000 kilometers one way. This is a fast non-stop rail shuttle between South and Northern Norway, where the larger part of the transport distance takes place in Sweden. And in 2018, we had access to data from wayside wheel damage detectors from Trafikverket and the Swedish Transport Administration. But we did not have a systematic approach on how to use it. So we needed to systemize our collection of data in order to use the data. So we bought a system, we bought access to a system. And this was our first step and the beginning of a journey that we most certainly haven't finished yet. But having bought the system, our next step was how to use the data and to make decisions based on the data that we had systemized. We spent the following winter, the end of 2018 and beginning of 2019, with the system available, the information available, but we had to learn what the information we received actually meant for us in practice. So we followed closely the information that we collected. We spent a lot of time comparing the results from the wheel detectors with physical checks, continuously improving our understanding of the collected data. And an important effect of this effort was that the maintenance staff and the wagon staff also experienced that the data collection was correct, securing faith and trust in the system and the data. And that was really important foundation for future work. And people who haven't used the data in the past will be accustomed to trusting their instincts and experience. So making the data the primary input for decisions will be a big change. And there were, of course, incidents where we picked out wagons that were not faulty, but the incidents were few and they were rare. And we used these incidents to understand what happened and in turn avoid generalizing these incidents to all data. But at this time, we still did not take any decision directly based on the data we had. So last winter, we used data to decide on which wagons to pick out of production and to put to maintenance. And I would say we then reached a level where we could also automate the information. And now we have implemented an automatic process where the data we collect about the wheels automatically notify the personnel on the end station that the wagons will be taken out for production for predictive maintenance. And at the same time, a need is generated for a fresh wagon to enter the wagon set. And our experience so far is that we have reduced the number of delays caused by damaged wagons with 80%. On the other side, we do not see significantly reduction in the number of wheels we changed on the wagons. But the changes we do are made planned and with significantly less punctuality deviations in traffic. And the value of this is, of course, significant and appreciated. So to take this further, we are now currently working specifically with the bearing failures, where we use data from acoustic wayside detectors as a basis for building experience. And bearing failures is an area that is demanding and difficult to work with, and it's important to create barriers and to get better control of this problem to avoid major accidents. And now with our experience collecting data and the first steps automating work processes, we acknowledge the need for a more digitalization in order to take ourselves to the next level. And among other things, we see the need for solutions that gives us an even more accurate location on our equipment. And therefore, we have equipped over half of our wagon fleet with the GPS, giving us a more precise overview of where the wagons are and how we use them, in addition to the condition of them. And one of our basic questions is whether we optimize our use of wagons. And the simple answer to this is no, we do not. And we already see that we get better overview of how we use the wagons, and we compare this with how we plan utilization of our equipment. And having equipment that stands still costs a lot of money. So we recognize that we have too many wagons compared to our planned production, and we see the potential for our wagons to roll a long distance per year. So we need to learn more about how many wagons we need, and where we need them, and how we can use them more efficiently. And we need to build this knowledge into our planning and continuously learn. and improve. And our goal is, of course, to increase utilization of the wagons so that we can have fewer wagons and that the wagons roll more kilometers in relation to the production we are to carry out. Our ambition going forward is of course, better forecasting and prediction of our production plan, giving us the ability to take smart decisions to reduce the impact of delays and deviation, or even eliminate them. And this, in turn, gives us lower costs, improved competitiveness, and our customer a more reliable service. And we're not really there yet, but we have started the work and the journey getting there. And of course, this information is only one part of the landscape and must be in turn be able to adapt and align with information from other areas of our business and our business environment. So in conclusion, we at Cargonet are today, compared to before, in a much better way, better position to see challenges before they arise, especially within the wagon maintenance area. And digitalization of our fleet management is a step towards a future where we can connect even more processes together to become more cost effective and ensure more predictable deliveries. And we still have a good way to go, but we've started the journey. And technology here is at no limits. The limitations, as I see it, is that it takes time for our different work processes to align with each other internally, and this must in turn align with our external environment. So going forward too fast will not automatically give you the results that you probably want and expect. So it takes time, and the organizational development is vital and a central part of any digitalization project. And of course, we are all in a hurry. So I thank you for your time and for the opportunity to share our views. And thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Carl. It was a really revealing presentation, and I think everyone would agree with me that it added a lot to the discussion today in terms of context. I particularly like seeing the trains going through the snow. It's a hardcore environment. It reminds us of the challenges that you face. And it was great to hear the perspective from actually an operator's perspective in this discussion as well, especially on the freight side. Amazing actually to see that you're achieving such records of punctuality already, and that there's always this desire to improve this further. Obviously touched onto the KPIs thing, is a repeating theme as well. It's deciding a little bit on which KPIs to focus on in the early stages of these digital programs, and then feasibility study. And then, you know, we get into this kind of topic of affecting or impacting the work processes. And I think this is really where we start to see the tangible benefits. And I enjoyed your story with regards to the Winter Olympics and so on, and the impact that these changes had on the punctuality. So let's pick up on some of these things later. Thanks, and you'll I hope join us in a little while for the discussion. So yeah, thank you, Carl, and onwards we go. Now it's time for our next speaker. Some of you may be familiar with this gentleman. Hopefully we'll discover more about the story on how the company evolved. I think speaking to this speaker earlier, you know, the focus again is on telling some stories to make it real. You know, we talk a lot about data, but it's about what we do with the data that matters. How this organization is driving digital adoption, and take some analogs from other industries as well, which should be interesting. So from VR Fleet Care, the Sales and Development Director, I welcome to the discussion Mr. Mikko Alanko. Hello, Mikko. The floor is yours.
Hi, Daniel, and thank you. And good afternoon, everybody, also on my behalf. So basically, I'm here to tell you a story about a digital transformation, and specifically a digital transformation of our maintenance company. So if some of you or most of you hopefully know, but those who don't know what VR Fleet Care is, so we are a fleet maintenance company. So we are experts in fleet maintenance and life cycle services. So we have been a company or a unit of VR Group the Finnish railway operator for the last 160 years almost now. And then for the last 2 years, we have been our own company. So basically, we are a subsidiary of VR Group at the moment. So we have approximately 1,000 employees, and we make turnover approximately 200 million euros per year. And then for 2 or 3 years ago, we changed our strategy from serving only VR Group and its fleet into moving out from not only out from VR Group. We are of course still thinking that they're going to be our most important customer for the future, but to get more customers, so we decided to make our maintenance commercial. So we made this leap into the subsidiary, and now we are offering services also to other customers and in other countries in Baltics and Scandinavia. And at that time when we made the shift, so we decided to offer or at least brand our company to 4 different categories. So we offer modernization services, asset services, and component maintenance services. And then at some point in the picture, we also decided that now we're going to start offering these smart care services, which are basically these digital solutions for rail transport and rolling stock. But how did all this happen? We actually started our digital journey maybe back in 2010 in terms of how to utilize IoT. When we invested into our first wayside device, this wheel profile measurement, which was installed next to our biggest depot in Helsinki. And then basically for many years after that didn't happen so much until 2014. We decided to start investing more heavily into analytics. We made a proof of concept on diagnostics, data monitoring, and analysis software, and we also hired our first analytics resources. Then 2018, we figured that basically we have to change, or we have to renew all our systems, and we started investing even more heavily into the analytics. We changed and made a huge leap into a modern cloud data storage and cloud infrastructure. And we also invested to more analytics resources. But up till now, everything was just a development. And then at some point, we decided that this is actually going to be not only offered to our internal customers, but we want to make this totally a new business. So at 2019, we introduced this new service category called Smart Care. So this is the digital journey so far. But the question is, what was my topic also, why is a maintenance company providing digitalization as a service for railway operators? And the question is rising because when I started in this company 3.5 years ago, so my task that my supervisor gave me was to think that how the smart maintenance, as it was called back then, how should we do it? And at that point, we had old-fashioned systems. We had maybe 1 or 2 resources, and it didn't seem likely that at some point we would really offer these services to other companies. And actually, the whole digital path and transformation was in a phase that we really didn't know what this is going to become. What should we do? And then I started going to these wonderful seminars, such as this one, which then fortunately were still so that you could meet people. So I started going and trying to understand to myself that what should we do? What do others do? And one thing that I found was that the digital services or the IoT solutions were mainly presented at that time by either IT companies or then operators. I couldn't see that many maintenance companies with me at that point. And then I started thinking that why are we the only ones that in Finland the whole IoT and developing the digital maintenance was given to our maintenance company. So I also went and looked beyond our industry and I looked to traditional maintenance companies, how they are approaching this thing. And then I figured that they have taken totally a new, another kind of approach. So if we're looking at, maintenance companies from, let's say, industrial maintenance. So for example, these three examples, GE Digital, Quant, which is a Swedish industrial maintenance company, and Efora, which is Stora Enso, which is a Finnish paper and pulp company. So their maintenance division. So in all of these maintenance companies, vision, let's say, so the smart solutions are pretty much integrated in the whole company's purpose. So GE Digital is saying that they are putting industrial data into work. Quant is saying smart services for a sustainable world, and Efora is Stora Enso's solution to smarter maintenance. So basically, in that industry, the maintenance companies were the ones who were creating this kind of digital maintenance, and not operators. At that point, I started thinking, why are they doing that? And my answer to myself was basically that when you do a digital transformation, you should look at what is your core competence. So if you're trying to do digital transformation, or you try to make your business digital, so basically it's not something that you glue over your business, but you extend your core competence. So in that sense, I started thinking that what are we doing? And then my mind came to this asset management concept, which is basically what we are. We are an asset management company. We are providing asset management support for fleet owners. So what is asset management? So for you who don't know, so infrastructure asset management is the combination of management, financial, economic, engineering, and other practices applied to physical assets with the objective of providing the best value level of service for the cost involved. It includes the management of the entire life cycle, including design, construction, commissioning, operating, maintaining, repairing, modifying, and replacing, and decommissioning or disposal of physical infrastructure assets. Just to give an overview of how somebody is translating asset management, and then to put that into our world, what is fleet life cycle? This is something that we do. So basically, if you think of fleet life cycle, so for the first 5 to 10 years, it goes so that first you specify a fleet, you have a need, you need a new fleet, you do specification, you procure the fleet, and then at some point you get the fleet, and then you get the project where you start taking in your fleet and starting to ramp up the whole thing. And after that, you have the 15 to 30 years of life cycle, where it mostly is when you really use the fleet. You operate it, you maintain it, but most importantly, you modify the fleet the whole time. You basically have to make small and big improvements to the fleet the whole life cycle in order it to be so that it can answer all the demands that are given to the fleet. And then if you think of 15 to 30 years, so pretty much all the technology is you have to change at least once. And then keeping this in mind, so I saw that basically we already serve our customers in all of these categories, maybe not in the operation. So this is what we do by living. We are specifying the fleet. We are doing procurements. We are doing when the fleet comes to us, we are doing testing and so on. Then of course we do maintenance, we do modifications. So this is what a maintenance company does. And then I started thinking and found out that actually we have already done digital services to all of these categories. So basically the data and the analytics has already been there for these before we even knew that what we're going to be. So we had done specification of data sources and architecture to VR Group's newest locomotives, for instance. We have done analytics on ramp up of different data sources. We are doing quality control. In the maintenance side, we already had done some predictive maintenance, and then we are providing more and more detailed maintenance data from our ERP system to our customers. And then on the modifying side, so what we do and we can do is we can retrofit sensors to our fleet. We can specify new systems, what they should contain, and we have already done some data-driven lifecycle planning, so that we take all the data from the operations and the maintenance, and we try to plan that what should be the life cycle. And what we also discovered is that the data that we gather, so that can also help the operations. So basically with the data we can also inform the fleet owner or the user that what is the impact of your harmful use. So if you drive some way your locomotive that it's going to harm it, so we have the data, so we can inform them. So basically I discovered that we have this we are serving already services to the whole throughout the whole life cycle. And again, thinking about the core competence, we as a maintenance company, we have our core competence is basically the technical understanding of fleet and its components. We know how the things work. So basically, if somebody asks our mechanic how does the door work, so he or she can tell how the system is performing and how it's working. And if you think about the 4 building blocks of let's say digital transformation, so yeah, you need data, you need tools, you also need data science. But the most important thing is that when you're trying to do the digital transformation, so it comes over your core competence, and the core competence is our industry expertise on the fleet. So in that sense, I saw that of course this then would be pretty natural for us to take this kind of position that we utilize our core competence, which is the industry experts, and we also already had the other 3 components. So with all this said and understood, so then we did this change, and we believe in this strategy that basically we are the ones who are providing these digital services. So we're extending the core competence that we have in our experts. And my last slide is actually the whole result of this. So basically our strategy is now to provide the whole value chain of digital transformation. So if you compare us to a, let's say a basic normal IT company, so we are able to provide the business case needed, because we know what things in the maintenance side, how costly they are, and we are also able to provide the end result, which is the change. And in my opinion, the change is actually the one thing that really brings the value. Because if you install sensors, you get the data out of the fleet or your assets, and you can even make some data science magic to analyze it, but you still have not gained any value. And the value really comes when you really get to do so. You finish them with changes. You either make less maintenance, you use less people there, or you get more availability, and this all comes through the process change, and that's something that we do by living in our maintenance company. So this is what I had to say, and basically this was a story of our digital journey and digital transformation so far. So thank you for your attention. And
so Mikko, thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed that one. It was great to hear about your own journey, and I like the fact that you told it as a story as well. When we think about digital transformation, and particularly from a fleet maintenance company side of things, I think it's particularly interesting to see the evolution, the milestones that you went through. It was kind of a personal journey that was tied to the organization's journey from your starting date, and then digging into the topics and discovering that some things have been done already, but some things hadn't been done and needed to be sort of prioritized as well. I think particularly interesting was this part about the smart solutions and the fact that they must be integrated. This smart care turned out to be a smart move, if you'll excuse the bad pun. But then the final part here, where you talked about the fleet life cycle, and that as a maintenance company, you need to be driving the change because you're sitting at the center of so many critical business processes. And this is the thing that I'm always banging on about, is that until you actually start to change and evolve the business processes themselves and get engagement from your own people and from the people that you're interacting with, it's difficult to actually create the value and to extract real profit and meaning from the process. So I think we had the whole life cycle of the journey there, as well as the life cycle management, and I think there's some interesting things to pick up on later, so thank you, Mikko. So yeah, it's time now for our final speaker of the day, and we will hopefully discover something about the organization and the challenges around the culture of data analytics and innovation. So I had a chat with Annika beforehand, and this is a topic that I'm always aware of, is that trying to get the culture right so that it's innovative and embracing the change, but also still holds on to all the valuable knowledge from the domain, from the past, and from the legacy as well. And how do you get data sources to come together? How do you embrace data literacy across the different business units? So without further ado, I'd like to welcome from VR Group, so associated with Mikko, but a separate organization, the head of data and analytics. It's Miss Annika Nordbo. Hello, Annika, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Daniel. Yeah, so I'm from VR Passenger Traffic and Fleet Care, where Mikko is from. Like he said, he's the subsidiary company of VR. So in addition to passenger traffic, we also have the transport, which is the logistics. I'll be talking more about the passenger side now. I've been at VR now for 3 years. I started from scratch a data and analytics group. We're now 8 people. We have a data engineer, 2 BI developers, 3 data scientists, a customer insight analyst, or a researcher to myself. So we cover basically everything related to data and analytics in the passenger traffic. So here's a couple of points that I've sort of figured along the way. I also was the head of data science at the Finnish national airline Finnair before coming to VR. So more sort of experience from the passenger traffic side from that too. First of all, what's the optimal organization and way of working? I think everybody agrees that agile development is the right way to go nowadays. Nobody's really going for heavy, long waterfall projects anymore. But the question is how to do agile development. One can get it wrong quite easily, actually. So in the left-hand side, in a successful value chain, you create everything from end to end, from data and infrastructure to data wrangling and modeling to the actual data use, e.g. analysis or whatever automation it is. You take it use case by use case, you do everything through one by one. And that's how I think is the right way to do. But what commonly happens is these 2 other cases, where in the first case, it's too business driven. So there's too much sort of business demand to get stuff done really fast. And then when you do that for a while, all of a sudden you can't create any business value anymore, but you find yourself with a large technical debt, which means you just have to do more infrastructure work and won't create any value for like a half a year, for instance. Another way is that if you're doing things really really sort of technical, in a too technical way, and forgetting the business value, not doing it by use case, but doing it so that the data and infrastructure is top notch and really good, but then you don't create business value. A really nice robust system, but not creating value. And that's of course not what we want to do, isn't what we want to do. So agile development and really use case driven, but not too business driven is the way to go. So how should we then have this organization or the data analytics team? So here on the y-axis, we have the business understanding, and on the bottom x-axis, the technical advancedness of the team. If we put the DNA role spread all around the business, we definitely have really good business understanding. But usually what happens is it's not so technically advanced. We won't have models in production that are robust and automated. And if we have one DNA team for the whole company, then that means it is definitely technically advanced. It could be in IT, but the business understanding will be more poor. So what we try to do is have centralized teams for business units. So we try to have the business understanding, sort of hit the sweet spot between business understanding and technically advanced. Actually, the ball is a bit too high. We don't have as good business understanding as if we had all the roles were spread all around the team. So we have one team of 8 people now that serves the whole passenger traffic, and we're trying to hit both business understanding and be technically advanced. And so we started 3 years ago, growing the team, have a data analytics platform, which is the next slide. And here's a couple of things about the culture disruption we have caused by this DNA functionality. First of all, we've given access to data. We have taken the access so far that actually there's a lot of people in the business who have direct access to our data warehouse. They know SQL. So that means people need capability. I'm not saying that everybody needs to do SQL and be able to fetch their own data, but they should be able to, for instance, use Power BI, which is our visualization tool, to fetch data and analyze it. And also data literacy, which is on my last slide too, is very important. So that means how they understand the data, know how to ask the right questions and analyze things. And for the company and the directors, that means there's database decision making, and also bosses have to really demand from their teams to use data and make decisions according to that. Automation, on the other hand, changes roles in the sense that, for instance, in customer care, the customer care people only handle the most tricky cases, and all the simple cases go through automation. And that means faster processes and basically less people to lead, and of course cost savings in that. And then one sort of big area we also done is we're shifting from person dependency to optimization models. So before we had a lot of staff doing planning. We had planners doing timetables, rolling stock, staff, work shifts, duties, and rosters. Whereas now we're shifting all the time towards that people are more like AI supervisors. So we have optimization models which make the suggestions, for instance, for cleaning, when should trains be cleaned or what the rolling stock should be. And then this planning person, he basically checks what the algorithm has given. So he has or she has the knowledge how, like, is it okay really, will it actually work? So the final check. And the planner doesn't need the 2 weeks per rolling stock always. So this all impacts on the customer satisfaction, of course. So I mentioned the data analytics platform. My slides are skipping, sorry. No, the slides aren't changing at all. Okay, this is lagging for me. Sorry, I'll talk anyway. Let's see what slides are coming. So we built a data analytics platform. We need to bring data into one place so that we can use it together in many ways. On the left, there's examples of data sources we have. We have about 50, from which we've done 30 something. So we have sales and customer clicking data, the restaurant wagon sales, customer relations management, different applications used by staff, competitor prices, operative train information like rolling stock, on-time performance, social media, staff planning, and so forth. And in this data analytics platform, we have a customer 360 and data science models running on their own, training themselves in the night. And from that, we have personalized content and customer care automation, so the customers see like that. For instance, in the app, there can be recommendations. Then we have lots of dashboards and analytics solutions. We have a couple of hundred people using our Power BI applications. And then we have these optimization cases that I mentioned. So how to calculate the return on investment? That's of course a big question. So what we do is basically we calculate so that if there's additional sales, for instance, from personalization, or the rolling stock is where demand is, we get paid, for instance. And then we have a chart, workload versus value, and then we think, okay, here's the optimization use case. Why? Workload, 1 month of work worth $1 million. Sounds good. Another case, only $500,000, and also takes 3 weeks. We're not doing that first, and so forth. So we have content personalization, customer care, automation, whatever, prediction models and dashboards. But what's really difficult is the work that is done for strategic decision making, because there we can't measure the value easily at all. So usually we have the ones that we can calculate the euros for, but then we have a group of things that we can't calculate the euros for. We just need to be able to do those too. They are strategically important in another way. And here is actually our return on investment chart for last year. This year isn't closed yet, so I don't have it yet. So I've had to take all the use case names out, sorry for that, and the euros. But here are our use cases on the x-axis, and on the y-axis is the millions of euros, what they were. The black ones are costs, like staff costs and cloud service costs, and the profits are different use cases. And all in all, we were at return on investment about 240%. And this year's aim was 400, but since sales are doing very poorly because of Corona, that means that we're not going to hit our target. Then a couple of examples how we help the company during the worst Corona time in the spring. I assume that everybody else had the same problem. We had to react fast with new timetables, for instance. So we had passenger demand predictions and different schedule scenarios that we had, and then this was sort of made for the planning people, and then they could identify which trains they want to cancel or move and so forth. And on the other hand, we had a lot of ticket cancellations. Customers didn't want to travel, so we had to sort of be predicting, like, okay, how much money do we have in that customers will want to get back, and what does it mean for our cash flow, and how much work does it mean, and other complications. So we made these possible. Also, we had tens of thousands of people doing ticket cancellations, and believe it or not, there was a manual process. There was a human going through when somebody filled a web form, a human went through it. It took 7 minutes per person or so. I don't remember what the value was. Anyway, the queue was like months long. So we made an automation for the handling. And here's the NPS, the Net Promoter Score, which went from minus, I've got wrong values there, I'm sorry. It went from minus 9 to like plus 50. So it's a massive change also in the customer satisfaction with this sort of automation. So what's still missing? We got all these fancy data and analytics platforms. There are lots of use cases in production. Clearly our return on investment is positive, but what's left is basically data literacy and the last mile and the culture change. So data literacy is really what's in everybody's head. Are the people really skillful enough to really use data, really ask the right questions and use it. We have to more and more teach people to do that and to motivate them to do that. There's also some user management things, some monitoring a data catalog. We don't have a clear list of data, all the data we have in the company. So that's also still, but the biggest is really this sort of last mile, like in passenger traffic, otherwise like getting the people to their home doorstep, the last mile problem in the door-to-door services. It's the same in the data and analytics, that the last mile is the hardest. Thank you for that. That was 2 minutes quicker than scheduled. So back to Daniel.
So yeah, thanks very much, Annika. Really great presentation. A few connectivity problems and slide issues, but it was really well persevered on the presentation, and we certainly got a lot out of it. So yeah, it was interesting to take the passenger perspective. Again, a bit like Mikko's experience. When you joined, you had to sort of grab the whole thing and run with it, carry it forward, and really you know, be the spearhead of the change here. And it's a relentless task, and it seems like you've achieved a lot of things, and it's very encouraging to see the results there on the ROI side of things. I think that you know, the insight there into the mindset of development on the agile side, I think that everybody is working this way, as you said, and it's always a risk about how much domain knowledge you manage to integrate, whether you get that basis, the technology basis, solid and strong enough to handle the things that you're going to do later, and how much to invest in both sides is always a kind of a contentious issue. It's great to see how you managed to centralize the team. It's quite a small team, but it sounds like you're very effective together anyway, and you've got the right mix of skills in there. And then as we moved into the ROI thing, I think that these are the kind of numbers that we want to see, and it's very difficult to calculate ROI on a lot of these things because there's a lot of knock-on effects. It's not just the thing that you're looking at directly. Back to Schrödinger's cat, you don't know if it's alive or dead until you have a look. This is often the case with new data and sources of data. One of the things that came out at the very end there was just how much flexibility these sorts of solutions have given you, both to evaluate how effective you're being, but also to decide where to prioritize change going forward. And this cancellation handling is clearly a big impact. So thanks, Annika, for that so much. Really interesting. I'm going to ask everybody to join us again now. We've got some time now for the discussion. It will take us up to the end of the session. So let's get our thinking hats back on and try to work out where are the parallels between each other's experiences. There's actually a question from the audience here, which I'm going to start with, even though it's a bit of a wild card, but just to throw it out there and to show that we do listen to the audience questions. So welcome back, everyone. There's a question about how much or how valuable would be a full map of European rail lines to be available and standardized for use with the digital twin. Now, I'm not sure whether this is what we really need, to be honest. I mean, obviously, we've all got sort of front ends with various map facilities and dots on maps and so on. Javier, I'm going to ask you to kick off on this one. What do you think of this?
If I did understand correctly, what I could do, or what we can do with a digital map of different routes and services and a digital twin is, I imagine the use case of the driver advisory system and energy management product. So we can have that map, that routes, together with the information we can collect for a fleet, to recommend, to advise the driver how to drive in a more efficient way. So try to consume less energy, respecting timetables.
Makes sense. Carrot, have you got any thoughts on this? Is mapping a thing of the past in terms of these physical maps with dots and things moving? Is it more about automation, or are we not there yet and we have to use a hybrid?
Can you hear what I'm saying? Yes.
Yes.
Good. Obviously, I think a map still has a purpose also in the future, but I think as we add more AI into the data, probably we will see other ways of visualizing things or dealing with the data. That would be my 5 cents on that.
Makes sense. Now I'll just open it up to you others. I guess you know, if you've got a comment on this, then fire away. Otherwise, I've got plenty more questions. Okay, let's press ahead then. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Mikko now. Mikko, when you arrived, you did the sensible thing. You looked around at the landscape and you tried to assess what's out there, what the others are doing, what's missing, and how you could evolve. How do we decide what to prioritize? Where are the blockers, and how do we decide where to invest?
We decided solely based on what's important and what's not. So the most important things, even if they are cost based, so that they're really costly, or then they are, I don't know, availability or security wise, safety wise important. So that was where we started. So that was pretty simple for us. So what has the biggest effect? So start on that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, each department you speak to will tell you something else is important. Is that the case, Carl?
Yeah, it's probably some of the case, but I think that everybody has to show the effects on the project, and that's actually how it's going to be further on as well. So I think trying to work on the potentials and to work in a way with the whole value chain, as Annika was looking into. I think this is a very important issue that she had in her presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing that came from, I mean, quite all of you really, is that you're sort of working very lean in terms of trying to be efficient with the teams, with the communication, and with priorities and resources. How do we, let's say, how do we extract sort of the right culture with our customers? Maybe I throw this one out to Javier. You know, obviously, it's about sort of education and support, but it's also, you know, about sort of creating a new standard. Is that the case?
I could say it's a question of communicating and trying to understand the needs we're going to have in front of us. It's a question of prioritize again. It's a question to be able to propose something that makes sense, that is aligned to the strategic needs from the client perspective. So,
how do we get the right mix between business driven and technology basis? How does that combination come together in reality when we're dealing with the daily negotiation, shall we call it, within the business? Because, you know, we're dealing with a legacy of traditional mindset. Why are you suggesting this is broken? You know, this is kind of a part of the culture. When you obviously have some evidence, you can bring it to the relevant stakeholders and say, you know, this is how it could be. Maybe Annika, you know, you can tell us a little bit about how you manage the expectations of stakeholders on this journey.
Yeah, so how we started, actually, the first person I recruited when I started things from scratch, he was a BI developer, so he could actually create value immediately, although everything was really crappy underneath. Under the hood, it was a mess. We didn't have any fancy, you know, data analytics platforms yet. We had, you know, Excels and an old SQL database and things like that. So the first guy, he just created fancy dashboards. And then later on, we just fixed stuff under the hood and automated things and so forth. But what was important was that we started creating value immediately, although it was a mess under the hood, so to say. With the leanness, I thought very carefully who to recruit and try to keep it minimal all the time. And one important thing is to try to recruit these unicorns that have both good analytical and technical skills, but also communication skills. Those people are really rare, because usually if you have really good technical skills, you don't have the people skills, and that's a real challenge. And that's also important for the improving the data literacy and the culture, to have the data analytics team, for instance, for people who are good at communicating. I'm not saying that ours is. In addition to our team, I have to say, we also have nowadays a team in IT. So first we started doing it so that I just recruited everybody I needed to do it end to end. Whereas later on, like a year ago, we then took more of the technical part out of the team and moved it to IT then. And now there's a shared team there, which is actually providing things for Mikko, fleet care, to also get some sort of benefit, so we don't do duplicate work, for instance.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think obviously it's almost a bit like a startup experience, moving into this sort of when it's you're prioritized by the business, you've got responsibilities to deliver, you've got to fail fast or make sure that you set off in the right direction. Mikko, how did you manage the stakeholder expectations and make sure that the team was tuned for performance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe the answer is pretty much similar to Annika's, because of course you must provide some value, because you cannot just lie for years that it's coming. But you have to provide something. But I think that I try to both bring this value and then also bring these visions and strategies there on the side, so that they see that this is not only some single things that we are doing, but we're actually going somewhere. So maybe those both were then with us, but without the value, so I don't think that I would be here. And then Annika, she had a good thing, because I had recruited the best analytics for us, and then now they are in the IT department. So
you got each other's backs, which is really great to hear. Obviously, excellent. I think maybe I'll put this out to you guys, to the others as well, because it's an interesting theme. I mean, it's obviously when I was hearing from you, Carl, earlier, Carl Frederick, you're talking about this collaborative decision making. And this is sort of an interesting one, because on one side you've got, if everybody's involved in the whole sort of thinking life cycle, let's call it, then you get maximum engagement, and then you've got the chance for Annika's data literacy. If you make decisions sort of in a very small team, you can possibly move faster, but you leave people by the wayside. Is that something that you had to be guarding against?
Yeah, of course it is, but I think the most I think the concept is, of course, it has to be adapted into the railway system, and probably it's a better concept for one area of the railway in order to process all the data and what the information you're going to process in this kind of model. But I think that we need to improve to see different concepts in a way to actually more iteratively and more on demand, being flexible with our decisions and could take decisions on the circumstances that's really changes. So I think this is an interesting study, but of course it is a pilot here, and it probably wouldn't be like the concept when we can actually take it into the use. So but I think it is very interesting to this theme that you put up with in terms of driving culture and driving this technology, because people and attracting competence into in an area as freight trains, we see that of course the lack of profitability that historically characterizes this industry probably is some of the problems attracting the good people. And I think this is an important issue, because we have some locomotives, or what you call the people who go ahead and see opportunities in this area, but we also need to make sure that the organization as well and our processes keeps up. But first of all, we have to attract good people, and then we have to have attractive jobs, and of course, for this to happen, we have to have profitability into the company, so they could invest in these areas, and that's probably part of the problem in the freight trains area, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's getting better, obviously, as we see from Annika's ROI on some of those cases. You know, these tools are making a really big impact on profitability. And obviously, as we start to get more data, then it's going to be more and more interesting for these bright minds to join. And, you know, I guess we end up maybe with sort of two cultures within the organization if we're not careful: a very progressive, fast-moving, agile, nimble mindset, and then the more, you know, this is how it works, just, you know, let's just accept it. Carrot, you're nodding. I'm going to hand it to you now.
I think this talk is right down my alley, to be honest, because what I see is also that we need also the leaders in the company to take leadership of data and data quality. And so far we talked only about the analytics people, that we need to hire good people in analytics, but also we need to have good leaders that understand the value of data and understand the impact of high data quality and what it can do. And I think in the future, we have to give way for those leaders who understand this, because this is really how we will be running our business in the future.
Yeah, agreed. Javier, you've got direct experience of dealing with this, you know, from sort of an evangelist point of view, let's call it, you know, persuading your customers that this makes sense, that they can extract considerable benefits. Obviously, it's the short-term benefits, show them something now, versus, you know, create the infrastructure and the culture for the long-term gains as well. How do you tackle this topic and dealing with the stakeholders and so on?
I would say we need to exploit and we need to explore. We need to continue exploiting our business, and then we need to exploit new things, to explore new things, new technologies, new opportunities. But the way we communicate with clients is quite in a rational way. We all are pushed to get out the best out of our business plan or our resources. So for us, the mantra is return of investment, and that's the way we do usually approach the client. That makes sense. If this is aligned with your strategic plan, if you need to or want to move to another scenario, if you don't want to do things not only correctly, you need to change the way you're doing things. You need to transform your company, and that's not it's a never-ending story. You need people to do that. It's not we have discussed about technology, but it's about, I could say it's about to maximize the function of people, data, technology, and trust. So we need to be open. We need to be transparent. We need to hire right people. We need to train them. We need to give them the best tools, and we need to give them the domain knowledge if they don't have it, so that they can address the challenges that our clients are having. So we address the client in a very return of investment, rational way of doing things.
It really makes sense, Javier. Thanks for your comprehensive answer. I think you know, it's a nice wrap up on that topic. Just going back to Carl Frederick for a second, you know, talking about intermodal and the complexity of delivering things in these challenging environments. Also, obviously, to Carrot and you know, the challenges you face, or the challenges we all face. But you know, we're very aware that we're not operating as an island. We're operating in a system, or actually a bunch of nested systems, and the complexity can be somewhat overwhelming. Just let's talk for a second about business process automation. Like, this is the end game for us all, isn't it? You know, what can we expect? How much can we expect to automate, and how much are we going to still need to have manual human oversight here? Who would like to go? I'll give it to Annika for a little while. How do you feel about that one, Annika?
Actually, I had a connection problem here right now, so I heard like half of the question, unfortunately.
Yeah, let me say it quickly. I mean, we're basically involved in complex systems here. We have a lot of complexity to deal with. How do we manage this transition to automated business processes? Is that better?
Yeah, thank you. I got the end before too. In complex systems, you have to just split it into small units that are doable, and try to build the bigger wins out of that, and try to do it in as like fail fast, as agile as possible. I think the worst ones are ERP system changes, for instance. There's in some cases there are just no ways to split it into smaller units. But usually there is a way around that, and you can do it.
Depends on your team. Anybody else?
I could say we need to reduce the complexity. We need to reduce sometimes the parameters we take into account in order to provide a solution. We need to, if we want to scale the projects and use cases, then we need to govern the data. We need to define clear responsibilities. Who is the steward? Who is the what is the meaning of the data? How we are transforming the data, and what are the processes in which we are feeding the right data so that the consumers are gonna have the right information at the right time. So let's try to have a less complex system. It's not always possible, but let's try to reduce functionalities. Let's try to reduce requirements. Let's try to reduce as far as everybody can. Let's try to simplify things.
I think that goes a little bit back to Carrot's point as well about KPIs. You know, let's ask the right questions. Let's not sort of get bogged down in things that maybe were relevant previously, but now are not so relevant because we have these new tools in our hands. Is that true, Mikko, do you think?
Yeah, it is. I think started thinking about our world, because as I spoke earlier about the value. So we deal a lot with safety related things. So when we try to make process automation. So basically, if you want to change anything in this maintenance and fleet management ways, you have to do all kinds of assessments, and that's a really good thing that we do safety assessments, and we take care of the safety, because that's like the basics of everything. But what we have learned is that now we try to start them as early as possible, and we try to bring so many people into the picture as early as possible, so that we don't then in somewhere in the middle, so we find out that, okay, this is still yet one assessment that we haven't done, and then the whole project is postponed for that. So basically, we have learned to start early and take people with us, and then we don't want to get rid of those safety issues, but we have dealt how to deal with them.
Some great points there, Mikko. I think that it's back to this engagement topic to get everybody's buy-in, that, you know, you have to make sure that you do your preparation, that you iterate, like Annika was saying, so that you're not, you know, running off in the wrong direction, losing people along the way, and that we know what we're trying to achieve. If it's a safety objective, which is probably the basis or the first thing that we should all be thinking about in this industry. And then beyond that, just like to sort of maybe wrap up on this one. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes left. Sustainability, where does that feature these days? I mean, when we were talking, about the entire asset life cycle a little bit earlier in one of the presentations, and we're talking about reducing our impacts, reducing emissions, creating a more feasible method of transport for people and for goods than road, and to be competing with these. Is this really a hot driver? Because certainly this is sort of at the heart of my objective behind creating Nexiot. Yes.
I could. You go.
Yeah, I think it definitely is a driver, but I think we as an industry, the railway industry, we have to actually have we need to have high ambitions, because the market, if we're going to play a bigger part in the future, we know that the market will not reduce its demands for punctuality going forward. We see it during this COVID-19 pandemic. We see a huge increase in people buying from internet shops, or even a higher increase in home deliveries for freight trains and intermodal freight trains, and even higher increase in home deliveries. And if we, as an intermodal transport by train provider, want to play a part in this market tomorrow, we need to deliver and be a relevant part of this transport chain. And we think we deliver on environmentally friendly transport. That's check. Do we have zero carbon emission delivery chain, including the last mile? Yeah, maybe. We're into this, and definitely to come. But are we predictable and on time and reliable enough? I think we have to improve, and we are really in a hurry here. And if we're going to maintain our position and or even increase our relevance here. So
yeah, great points there. So would everyone else agree? We've got obviously 3 or 4 top priorities. Safety is always one, reliability and punctuality, efficiency and sustainability. But the trick is to build the right team, I guess. Yeah, is that true, Annika?
What about the customer? This sounded like an engineer's list of things.
Yeah, obviously, but I mean, when we're talking about efficiency, and I mean, these sustainability goals and so on are being put onto the customer's agenda in most cases as well. I think that Carl's point there is exactly right. People are demanding more sustainability at the moment. It depends who you call the customer in the current moment.
Yeah.
Karit, any points? Sorry.
I think we are in a quite interesting industry. So, right, railway is not a very polluting industry. It's quite sustainable, but instead it's maybe not enough, or there's an strategic plan from the European Union that is clearly stated in the Shift to Rail research and innovation agenda, is clearly defining the recovery funds. So the sustainability should be there, and should be there supplying trains, not diesel trains, supplying solutions based on battery supply mobility solutions based on hydrogen, but mixing all that with data. What we are experiencing a higher demand on with data, being able to consume less fuel in diesel engines, advise drivers to drive all the way to consume less energy with driver advisory systems. So there's something we can do mixing sustainability and data, and that's quite interesting too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well, Javier. It's the fact that the same data can accomplish multiple things, or not the same data, but the same pool of data. It's about, again, prioritization and definition of the quick wins and how to test those things and move forward. Any last words from Karit or Mikko? We've heard from everyone else in the last few minutes. Any final comments?
for the sustainability, so maybe just the idea that everybody are maybe considering the railway business is sustainable, and we are good in that, but do we still bring enough? So do we? Because when I think about maintenance, so we're trying to be sustainable because we're trying to recycle parts instead of buying new parts. So we're trying to recycle parts. But is this something that the people understand? Is this something that do we tell about that? Is that something that's obvious to everybody? So still we are sustainable, but we still have some parts that we probably do not tell enough to people that this is also sustainability.
Interesting. Kari, final comments?
About sustainability, well, I would
not necessarily. It could just be about anything we talked about.
Well, now that we're in the sustainability talk anyway, I would say our business in rail cargo is to transport goods from A to B, and we're in a this is competitive position with trucking and stuff. So as long as clients are demanding cheap over sustainable transport, that's what we are going to deliver, unless there will be initiatives from politicians, could be local or EU. I think we will not really change. Of course, we will use the data to produce more efficient ways of transport. But I think until we see any initiatives from the politicians, the only thing that we will reuse is probably data.
Very interesting. Yeah, I can understand that point. And again, it's about Annika. Thank you again for your comment there. Let's focus on the customer, because we've got to accomplish the customer's needs to keep rail viable as an option anyway. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody. It's now the time to finish, but I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon, and hopefully in person at the live events again. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.